Good morning everyone, I am Federico Jelo di Lentini, PhD student at the University of Catania in the Department of Political and Social Science, and today I am presenting my paper titled The Dimension of Land Waste in the Lombardy and Italian Regulatory Context. I've chosen 5 keywords for my paper: soil consumption, unsustainable consumption, urban sprawl, urban regeneration, and urban sociology. This paper aims to analyze the environmental impact of waste as a degeneration within the sociological phenomenon of consumption. Specifically, the present paper analyzes the waste phenomenon of one of the most important resources that our ecosystem gives us, the soil, particularly how the soil consumption has appeared to be in the Italian context in the last 2 years will be demonstrated. The current Italian regulatory framework put in place by political, national and regional institutions will also be described, in order to limit the progressive spread of this form of consumption of primary resources. In the last part of my paper, the main draft law currently under discussion in the Italian Parliament, whose aim is to effectively combat the spread of Italian soil consumption, will be analyzed in detail. Currently, the legislative processes that could have resulted in a national law have been interrupted due to the lack of interest from our legislator, which instead has focused on the current pandemic crisis that has plagued the entire world over the last 3 years. So, we can define the soil or land consumption as a phenomenon associated with the loss of a fundamental environmental resource due to the occupation of land originally agricultural, natural or semi-natural. The phenomenon refers therefore to an increase in artificial land cover linked to the dynamics of settlement, a process mainly due to the construction of new building and infrastructure, the expansion of cities, the densification or conversion of land within an urban area, the infrastructure of the territory. The concept of land consumption is defined as a change from a not artificial cover, uncommitment soil, to an artificial cover of land, consumed soil. I took this definition of land or soil consumption from the 2020 edition of the report from the Higher Institution for Environmental Protection and Research. So, in a natural condition, soil provides human beings with ecosystemic services necessary for their livelihood. Those services are the supply services that think about the food and the biomass, the raw materials that we took from the soil, the regulatory services, the support services, but we must also consider the cultural services provided by the soil. For example, the recreational services linked to the importance of the landscape and the natural heritage of the soil. So, at a national level, the edition 2020 of the report published by the SNPA reported a further loss compared to the previous year of about 57 kilometers square of Italian territory. This consumption of soil seems to be at about 2 meters square per second. So, by dividing this number of Italian inhabitants by the square meters of already cemented land, it's possible to deduce that each Italian citizen corresponds to about 135 square meters of concrete land already cemented. So, land consumption is a phenomenon that logically should go hand in hand with the population growth, but in case of Italy, it's not quite so. In fact, with a population growth of about 420,000 units in the country in 2019, cement covered another 57 million square meters more than the previous year. So, the cementification continues in our country and is still unrelated to housing needs and the needs for urban and social regeneration. On the contrary, much land is also consumed where the population stagnates, in a national context of demographic recession and in the metropolitan belt municipalities and intermediate areas, which have now become a variable land of means reached with difficulty by the services and with the problems of social inclusion and identity already known. The correlation with real estate value, with the aim of observing the concentration patterns of the land transformations in areas already densely urbanized, make it clear that real estate value and annuity still represent a significant driver in those free areas of our cities, which, moreover, represent a valuable resource for environmental and social sustainability. So, let's give now some data about. So, from the 2020 report of SNPA, it's shown that about 7.7% of Italian territory was waterproofed. With waterproofed or soil sealing, it's meant that a part of the artificial soil cover, where the permanent cover of the soil with artificial metals, is such as to eliminate or reduce its permeability. So it seems that the artificialization of Italian national territory in 2019 has worsened compared to the previous year. In 2018, in fact, about 51 kilometers square of territory were waterproofed, more than the year than the previous years, 6 less than recorded in the previous edition of the SNPA. Based on the trend recorded in recent years, it's possible to estimate that in the next 30 years, the new land consumption rate will be around 1,461 kilometers square. In recent years, this increase in soil consumption has been mainly mainly suffered by the agricultural territory, 66% affected by the phenomenon. The phenomenon affects the national urban areas are 27%. So the report in question established that the proportion of the national territory affected directly or indirectly by the phenomenon of land consumption is 38.8% with an altitude of 60 meters above sea level, 51.9% within 100 meters and 71.2 within 200 meters, which therefore means that almost the 3/4 of the Italian territory within 200 meters altitude are affected by the phenomenon of land consumption. So, concerning the regional level, the highest percentage recorded with the impact areas at 100 meters are in Puglia, Campania, and Emilia-Romagna. And for impact areas at 200 meters, the region with the highest percentage were still Emilia-Romagna, Puglia, and slightly exceeding 80% Campania and Sicily. In figure 1, you can see the percentage of land area directly or indirectly impacted at a distance of 60, 100, and 200 meters from the ground consumed in 2019. And the source is as well the report of 2020 of the Higher Institute for Environmental Protection and Research. So, the constant increase in cement production in the Italian territory clearly leads to a progressive decrease in total agricultural production. In fact, the report confirms that the greater impact of land consumption occurs at the expense of the main function that is the regulation of natural cycles, in particular hydrogeological cycle, the production of goods and raw materials, which in this case they fulfill primary needs such as water and food, and the absorption of human production waste, in this case the CO2 deriving from production processes. So it's estimated that that from 2012 to 2020, due to the consumption of arable land, about 3,700,000 quintals of agricultural products have been lost, which would correspond to about 7 million euros of net losses. So there are many scientific studies, some of which are conducted in Italian cities, that shows that the most urbanized areas are generally warmer than the surrounding areas, such as, for example, the countryside. I'm just quoting in the slide a paper of Battista and Vollaro published in Solar and Energy in 2019, and as well I'm quoting another paper published by Battista, Carniello, and Vollaro in Energy and Buildings in 2016. So, obviously, it's important to notice that this progressive degradation of national territory violates one of the rights guaranteed by the Italian Constitutional Charter, the Article 9, which states that the Republic promotes the development of cultural and scientific and technical research. It protects the landscape and the historical and artistic heritage of the nation. So now let's move on to the second part of my paper, which is about the regional intervention made to tackle the phenomenon of soil consumption. So, only recently some Italian regions have intervened independently from the state authorities with special laws to counter the growing phenomenon of land consumption. And so the first Italian region was Tuscany in November in 2014. Then it was followed by Lombardy region in December in 2014, and then we had the Piedmont region in 2018. On my paper, I'm focusing on the Lombard regulatory context. So the law was the number 31 of 2014, which dictate provisions to ensure that land use governance instruments in compliance with sustainability and land use minimization criteria, prioritizing buildings interventions toward already urbanized area, degraded or decommissioned in accordance with Article 1 of the law number 12 of 2005, regional law, which is under utilized for retraining or regeneration, including with a view to promoting and not compromising the environment, the landscape and agricultural activity in accordance with Article 4 of the Regional Law number 31 of 2008. So, the Regional Law number 31 of 2014 defines the land as a non-renewable resource, a common good of fundamental importance for the environmental balance, the protection of health, agricultural production for human and or animal nutrition, the protection of natural ecosystems, and the defense against hydrogeological disruption. This definition can be found in paragraph 2 of Article 1. In the paragraph number 4, the Regional Law number 31 of 2014 indicate its ambitious scope, which is to achieve on the territory of Lombardy the target set by the European Commission to reach a net land occupation of 0 by 2015. So the phenomenon of land consumption in the Regional Law number 31 of 2014 is defined as the transformation for the first time of an agricultural area by an instrument of land government not connected with agroforestry pastoral activity, excluding the creation of territorial urban parks and including the construction of municipal infrastructure. Land consumption is calculated as the percentage ratio between the areas of the new areas of transformation that results in a reduction of the agricultural areas of the current urban planning instrument and the urbanized and potentially urbanized areas. So the Regional Law number 31 of 2014 regulate what is called the transitional phase. Precisely, it's established a moratorium regime in the event that the local administration deviates from the PGT, so the territorial government plans, and it's established to the acceleration of the administrative procedures relating to the approval of the implementation plans resulting from the projections made through the current town planning instrument. It also established what is so-called a construction contribution. It's a fee to be paid in case of constructions. So, in order to conclude the study of the Regional Law number 31 of 2014, we should consider that it should be recalled that it has recently been the subject of a question of constitutional legitimacy. In fact, in the opinion of the Constitutional Court, the record number 179 of 2019, the Italian Constitutional Court states that it unlawfully restricts the autonomy of local authorities in the matter of urban planning. Now, in this slide, I am quoting a part of the record of the court record. Now let's move on to the last part of my paper, which is about the national regulatory measures. So the Italian people currently waits for a state law able to tackle the land consumption. Actually, there are many proposals on draft legislation under review in Parliament. The most concrete are two: the draft law number 164 of 2018 and the draft law number 86 of 2018. So the draft law number 164 intends to provide an effective legal definition of soil and consumption of soil, and lays down the rules to protect and safeguard a fundamental common good that represent a non-renewable and non-replaceable resource in the production of food and ecosystem services, organic matter transformation, water cycle, and climate change mitigation. The draft law number 86 defines the soil as a common good and a non-renewable resource that functions and produces produces economic services, ecosystem services, including the prevention and mitigation of hydrogeological disruption event, mitigation strategies, and adaptation to climate change, the reduction of phenomena that cause erosion and loss of organic matter and biodiversity. It's a definition very similar to the one that we can find in the 2020 edition of the SNPA report. Both the draft law number 164 and 86 of 2018 aims to achieve the objective of soil conservation through the planning of policies aimed toward the reuse and the already sealed land and through urban regeneration technique. They both suggest the opportunity to apply the tools used for land planning as soon as possible, both from the urban and landscape point of view. But these two draft law differ in terms of the method of application of the strategy suggested. In fact, the draft law number 86 suggests the opportunity to proceed along a series of steps that in the long run will lead to the achievement of the ambitious objective set. The draft law number 164 suggests to apply more rapid measures. In fact, the draft law number 86 in the Article 3 states that in line with the European Union's target of zero land consumption by 2050, it's defined at regional level the progressive reduction in soil consumption, which shall be at least 20% every 3 years compared to the soil consumption recorded in the preceding 3 years, both for permanent consumption and for reversible consumption. And in the Article 4, it establishes that the regions adopt provisions to encourage municipalities, individual and associated, to promote urban regeneration strategies, and also by identifying in planning tools urban areas and the abandoned productive areas to be subject as a priority to urban renovation and building renewal. The Article number 4, in its fifth paragraph, proposes the establishment of a green belt that surrounds the inhabited areas around the perimeter of the predominantly artificial and medium density context. Municipality identify a green belt with agricultural, ecological, environmental, and recreational function consistent with the conservation of ecosystems, aimed at promoting the absorption of carbon dioxide emission from the atmosphere through the increase and enhancement of the arboreal heritage, energy efficiency, the absorption of particulate matters, and to reduce the heat island effect while encouraging a regular collection of rainwater. The Article 8 provides for incentive measures in favor of municipal authorities that have adapted the municipal planning instruments according to the criteria and the modalities provided for in the draft law in question, and that have respected or even exceeded the percentage of land consumption reduction envisioned in the draft reform. The bill, from the other hand, the bill number 164 suggests more drastic and sudden strategic measures. It suggests the immediate cessation of land consumption and the rapid modification of the planning tools available to municipalities. I'm quoting here the Article 3 and the Article 4, which where we can find those more drastic and sudden strategic measures. And here is the full text of Article 3. So, in conclusion, the phenomenon of the increase in land consumption in Italy, excluding very rare exemption, is still a remarkably excessive form of waste of essential primary resources. The national parliament should so prepare, from one hand, a framework law that can stop the phenomenon of consumption of national soil, and from the other hand, provide a coherent regulatory framework for local authorities. Then the issue of land consumption must reach the top of the national political agenda in short time, and so in order to do so, it's essential that the topic should be disseminated as widely as possible to the public opinion, and the national and local institutions must put in place some measures for urban generation, such as the conversion of built-up areas in a clear state of neglect or degradation, the enhancement of national agricultural production, and, for example, a policy of recovery rather than that of buildings. So, thank you for listening, and I am available for any question if you need. Bye-bye.